Quick, what's one of the worst things a bookworm can go through? That's right, we're getting you out of a reading slump today. So let's take a second and talk about what is a reading slump. It's the moment when you look over at a book, pretending that you didn't see it, and then you just start scrolling aimlessly on social media, reading any words on a piece of paper that fails to captivate you. Picking up a book that you've been wanting to read forever and saying, I'll get to it tomorrow. And you never do. Overall, it's when you lose your reading focus. There are different ways of getting out of a reading slump, but first, I need your help. My husband has made a deal with me that once I hit 1,000 subscribers, he's gonna take me on a shopping spree to Barnes & Noble's for a major book haul. Well, reasonably speaking, I'm not selling my soul there or anything, but please guys, please subscribe so that I can take you guys with me on that journey. Why do we experience reading slumps? We, as bookworms, go through so much already. We're already struggling financially to stock up our bookshelves, deciding which main character is worth being our personality trait for that month. Regardless of what that reason is, we need to know why we get into reading slumps before we can figure out how to get out of them. Imagine all the times you found yourself in a reading slump. One of the main reasons is probably because you had something going on in your life at that time. When we experience changes in our lives, we tend to push back things that we really enjoy doing, reading and all other hobbies. Other stressors and challenges that we encounter in our life make us put down our books and not want to pick them up until we grasp a hold of these changes in our lives. You start to read your book, but then you can't focus on any of the words on the page because your mind is actually thinking about everything else that's going on in your life. There are a few ways of getting out of a reading slump, and it depends from person to person. Some of these strategies may work for you, and some of them won't. The first strategy that I found that really helped me was changing my reading format. This can be from ebooks, audiobooks, to physical books. I personally tend to read a lot of physical books, but when I get into a reading slump, I find myself gravitating towards ebooks. When I read my ebooks, usually that's on my phone. I find it convenient to read in random places. Like if I'm standing waiting for my elevator, I'll pull out my phone, quickly open up some kind of ebook, and I get like 2 pages in before my very slow elevator arrives. I don't normally pick up physical books, but when I do, they're smaller. So in my opinion, once you change up the format, maybe it just gives you the freedom to read. Maybe you're driving to work and an audiobook will be better for you, so you're not actually concentrating too much on other things. You're concentrating on the road and the audiobook is just playing in the background. The second strategy that I find that helps a lot is changing up your reading genres. If I'm too overwhelmed with fantasy world building and all the details that goes into a fantasy book, I try to pick up something quieter like a romance or maybe a historical fiction book. Regardless of what genres you love to read, there might be one out there that helps you get you out of your reading slump. The third strategy that I find that works is surround yourself with bookish things. Listen to a podcast. There are so many podcasts out there where they talk about books, they talk about the genre that you enjoy. Regardless of whatever podcast it is, it immerses you into books. Another thing you can do is go to the library, go to a bookstore, just see if anything calls out to you. Instead of going to your favorite genres, maybe just take a walk to a different section of the library or bookstore and see if something catches your eye. And maybe that is what will get you out of your reading slump. One of the easier things that I like to do to surround myself is I'll go on like Pinterest or Bookstagram and I'll just scroll and see all the beautiful pictures that people post, and it kind of motivates me to get up and read. Regardless of how you surround yourself with bookish things, it really helps me, and I really hope it helps you too. I really hope these strategies help you out, but I want to also share what books have gotten me out of reading slumps time and time again. The first book that I tend to pick up when I'm in a reading slump is this. It's called Fallen for You. I had received this back in September of 2020, and it was an ARC review by the author, and I actually still have like a little note that the author wrote for me. So I got this book in exchange for a review, and you can check that out on my Goodreads. This book is a paranormal romance, and not one single boring page in this book. It goes at the perfect pace, and it's not very overwhelming. This book contains like an air of mystery that surrounds it, that it forces you to keep reading. The characters super relatable, and there's not a lot of cliche backgrounds that make you turned off by the main character. Overall, the relatableness of the character, the pretty steady pace of the book, and the storyline itself gets me out of reading slumps with no problem. Now let's go back to fantasy and talk about The Shadows Between Us. I had bought a Fairy Loot box, and this was part of the March 2020 edition. At first, I thought it was a standalone book, but I actually did a little research and found that there's another book coming out, but it's from the point of view of a different character. So it technically is gonna be a standalone on itself. I picked this up when I'm still craving a little bit of fantasy, but I have noticed that it's more of a quick pace read. If I don't have much time and I wanna just sit and like read through this pretty quickly, it's fast paced. It doesn't keep you in suspense long, it resolves things quickly. The reason I use this book to get me out of my reading slump is completely different from the first book. The first book is more steady paced and we have a fun, lovable character, while in this book, it's quick paced. The main character is a schemer, a murderer, feisty. I adore her. It's not your traditional noble-hearted protagonist. The Shadows Between Us is kind of an enemies to lovers trope, but I would say it's more of a female tries to get the guy to fall in love with him and then get revenge on him by trying to kill him trope. There has to be a shorter way to describe that. Is there a name for that kind of a trope? If there is, can you let me know, please? It's pretty long. The third book that gets me out of my reading slump is a nice mutual mix of the first two, and it is An Enchantment of Ravens. When I first read this book, I wasn't the biggest fan. I actually rated it about 4 stars. I know 4 stars is a good rating for a book, but I was gonna give it 3.5 stars, and the only reason I gave it that 4-star rating was the storyline. It was quite unique. I haven't read anything like it. I really enjoyed the plot and the storytelling. It was there. The reason I was going to score it harshly at 3.5 was because of the characters. When I read it the first time, I didn't enjoy the fast-paced romance that they had built. I wanted something a bit slower. I know that's my opinion, but let me tell you, if you haven't read it, it's pretty fast. That's why this is kind of funny. It's not the best book I've ever read, but it gets me out of reading slumps. I guess maybe because of the storyline and how, fast-paced it is, it just draws me out of reading slumps. Then again, maybe there's some like magic sprayed onto these pages to make me go back and read them over and over again. I don't know. I, unfortunately, have recently been in a reading slump, and if you want to see how I got out of that one, click on the video right here to see that. And please remember to like and subscribe because I really want to go on that major book haul. Thanks again for joining me in my small corner of bookish paradise.